Dirt 5 is finally here. After a delayed launch, the Amplified Edition hit the online stores earlier on this week, and by the time this video goes live, the regular game you don't have to pay extra for will be out too. Now, I'm a huge fan of the Dirt series, well, the earlier ones anyway. I kinda went off them when they went down the more realistic route with Dirt 4 and Dirt Rally, but Codemasters promised us that they'd be going back to the roots with this one, and, well, after watching all of the trailers and teaser footage, it seems like that's what they've done. Instead of spending just 14 seconds behind the wheel to get a review out as quickly as possible though, I decided to sit down and have a proper playthrough, and when I say playthrough, I mean I've finished the entire career. So I've definitely put a fair few hours into the game, trying out all of the different cars and game modes, some that we've seen before and some which are brand new to the Dirt series. And well, while there are a ton of great features that they've nailed on this title, unfortunately there are many bad things that I can pick fault with. I'll try and explain everything as best I can. Let's get into it. Now, Codemasters know the way around a rally game, there's no doubt about that. The original Colin McRae rally released on PS1 back in 1998 is the most successful game of this specific franchise. But they had a 4-year spell from 2007 to 2011 where every game they released just banged. Of course I'm talking about the original Colin McRae Dirt, Dirt 2 and Dirt 3. Since then, sales have been okay, with the exception of 1 or 2 flops, but I think that's the reason why they've decided to shift the focus back onto the style of game they were making 10 years ago. Christ, 10 years ago. Man, I'm old. But just because they made bangers in the past doesn't necessarily mean that they have the recipe to do it again. So what's this new game like? Well, the bright, saturated, in-your-face visuals are definitely more reminiscent of the good old days back on Dirt 2 and 3. And that's not just while scrolling through the menus either, it filters into the actual racing as well. Now, I really like how they've laid out this career mode. Instead of signing up to an event and having to complete 4 races before you can start a new one, each race is totally separate from one another. Meaning you can jump on the PlayStation for 10 minutes, have a race, and not have to worry about finishing the same event when you log back on next time. You actually get a bit of choice when it comes to what event you want to do next, albeit with a couple of bottlenecks at the start. But you've got to look ahead and see what events might be coming your way later on down the line. I took this route across the top and it felt like I was racing in buggies and trophy trucks event after event after event, which kinda sucked. If you're a completionist, you can work your way through from beginning to end ticking off the chapters as you go. But I wanted to see what the progression was like the further into the game you got, and to be honest, this game lacks it a little bit. Now, I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet here, but I know I'm quite a quick driver when it comes to these Dirt games. But even when you crank the difficulty up to very hard, you don't seem to get any extra rewards for doing it. You accumulate the same amount of in-game dollar by playing on the easiest setting, which is a bit naff really, isn't it? There's no incentive for new players to try the harder difficulty like there was in the past. So after about 5 or so races in, you'll find that you can just start buying all of the best rated cars from each category, without having to work your way up through the ranks, providing that you're winning your events of course. What's the actual racing like though? Well, with it being a Dirt game, there's a lot of airtime, power sliding, and best of all, contact with other drivers. And they've also added in an extra few game modes that we haven't seen before, like they generally try to do. The likes of Rally Raid, Land Rush and Gymkhana have all made appearances in earlier titles, but Sprint, Icebreaker and Pathfinder are all great little additions to what was already quite a varied lineup. Saying that, I'm really disappointed that they've scrapped the classic rally stage. This is what rally games are all about. Yeah, it's fun racing against other people in a rallycross format, but hunting down your rivals after setting off 10 seconds behind them is something that really gets the beats per minute up. And scrapping rally stages in a rally game just seems like a stupid move to me personally. But yeah, all the new additions are probably going to be received quite well. The sprint racing is probably the trickiest to master, in the stock car at least, even if it looks like the simplest of the 3 new additions on paper. You just have to turn left. And this is the bit where all the NASCAR fans leave a dislike on the video, Luke. Icebreaker is more helpful than you think. If you're trying to hone in your driving skills a little bit, try bombing around on these skiddy tracks. Once you learn how to hold a drift and know how to feather the throttle to straighten it back up again, and gain speed towards the next corner on these frozen lakes, you can apply that to any track or race on the game. And finally, there's Pathfinder, and I'm not talking about the one that Mark Watney used on The Martian. This game mode is the most fun out of the new ones by far. I mean, who doesn't love extreme off-roading? You've probably seen videos of the guys who drive these things in real life flying 30 foot into the air and landing straight on the roof. It's hardcore shit, man. They are as powerful as anything and can go pretty much anywhere. So I'm hoping that we get a little bit more Pathfinder DLC since there's not that much content on the actual release, and it is hella fun. The addition of playgrounds is genius. If you can't be bothered spending all day building a course for yourself, you can just go download someone else's and see how close you can get yourself to that all-important #1 spot. There are some quality tracks on there already, and they're only going to get better. Kinda reminds me of those online races from GTA. Loads of fun. I haven't been able to connect with the servers yet to go get a race online against other players, but I have been racing against the AI on career mode, and they seem to brake about 50 metres too early into every single corner, which is helpful I guess because you can just dive bomb them all the time. But I'd like to have seen them be a bit more aggressive in defending like they were on grid. When you hit a bump in the road or a purpose-built jump, the physics just don't seem to be anywhere near as dialed in as they were back on Dirt 3. A bad takeoff on that game meant you were guaranteed to be punished by having the biggest crash of your life, but on Dirt 5 you can hit any crest at any speed and literally nothing happens. I've been mid-roll on some jumps and the game's just sorted it out for me and put the car back down on all four wheels. Somehow you can overtake people in the air as well. You both set off at the same speed and you end up gaining an extra 20 mph mid-air, slingshotting you into the lead. Proper bizarre. And other times it feels like there's a magnet underneath you pulling you back down to the ground. There's just no real consistency with it all. It definitely needs some improvement. While I'm on a bit of a rant, I might as well mention the damage too, or lack of it. I don't understand why Codemasters haven't gone all out with this. They were heading in the right direction with the recent games. In fact, it was better back in the original Dirt games than this one, so I'd say they've gone backwards about 13 years rather than just a couple. When you've got games like Wreckfest out there that are showing you what can be done, it just seems like a little bit of a cop-out by not including a decent damage model. It's all part of the fun wrapping your car around a tree and seeing the aftermath, even if it does mean that you have to start the race again or try to limp it to the finish line with one wheel. As always though, the locations used are class, and you definitely have to alter your driving style depending on the weather conditions. The dynamic weather mixes things up a bit because you can be mid-race and it'll just start to chuck it down with snow, meaning that you'll have to brake earlier or risk pile driving yourself into a barrier. As well as trying to win each race, you have the additional tasks on the left hand side of the screen to complete as well. They're usually something like complete 15 drifts within a race or spend 30 seconds in the lead, but you can get some which are a bit more tricky to complete. The user interface is super easy to navigate and has a more arcadey style to it from the off. I can't play any of the tracks that they've used while scrolling through these menus, otherwise I'll be struck down by the copyright gods, but let me tell you, all the songs are absolute belters. Falls, Chemical Brothers, The Prodigy, Stormzy, the list goes on. And at first I was like, whoa, the Donut Media Boys are on the game. Don't get me wrong, I love their videos, but I'm so glad you can mute them by pressing L3. It's a bit of a donut overload to be honest. Sometimes I just want to sit there in silence. You don't have to be talking between every single race. At least you can mute or skip those guys though, because you can't when AJ's running his mouth, and my god that guy likes to talk. Depending on which sponsors you choose depends on how much money you earn and what goodies you unlock. You can customise your player card and unlock liveries for certain cars by swapping companies once you've ranked them up. And the car list's actually pretty good. There's the odd one or two vehicles that they've thrown in for shits and giggles like the Escalade or the V8 Vantage, but there's a good selection for whatever event you want to do. For all those guys who subscribe to my channel off the back of BMW content, look, they've even got an M2 competition. Lovely. To summarise then, yeah, Dirt 5 is a pretty decent game. It's not in the same league as the exceptional Dirt 2 or Dirt 3, which is really disappointing because we know what Codemasters are capable of. But with that being said, if this is your first Dirt game, it's definitely worth adding it to your Christmas list. Colin McRae was a hero of mine, and that's what the foundations of this game is built on, so I'm only moaning because I want them to do better next time, and I know they can. So if you're listening, Mr. Codemaster, get me on the alpha testing next time round and we'll make this thing a bloody masterpiece. I'm sure I'll be posting more Dirt 5 content once the servers are up and running and I can access the multiplayer, but until then I'll leave you with a short compilation of gameplay with loads of different cars and modes for you to check out. Remember to like and subscribe, all of that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!